Please pray with me. May these words that I speak be grounded in my soul, encouraged by the God presence in me. And may these words that you hear be captured by your soul, enlivened by the God presence in you. Amen. A poem by Michael Shepard titled An Angry Poem About Peace. This is an angry poem about those weasel phrases which blow like paper in the street, going nowhere, hiding truth, helping us to deceive ourselves. Politicians intent on the evasion of clarity say them often enough, and will accept it as a term and believe it needs hard work and careful progress and compromise and agreements and initiatives and generous concessions and declarations of intent and cautious examination of opponents' motives in the battle for peace, and coming together to establish differences. Peace is what is eternally there when war and strife is absent. Eternally. I can't remember Jesus saying, was he Catholic or Protestant? I can't remember Jesus saying, peace process be unto you. When would that be? Or commanding the waves of the Sea of Galilee, engage in the peace process, be still. Somehow it just doesn't seem to carry weight as a blessing or a do it now. Go in process towards peace, my child. I wonder why that is. I wonder if this is the experience of life that caused John the Baptist to say, I wonder why that is. And then, rather than simply shrugging, like we so often do, and continuing on with the status quo, he decided to do something about it, at least for his own life and his own well-being. He became the first student in his time of metanoia. Metanoia, which means a profound change of mind and heart. He said no. He said no to religious and political and economic systems that compromised peace, that compromised love, that compromised hope, and that perpetuated injustice. He was calling himself at first, and then anyone who would listen eventually, to a new way of being in the world. John recognized that it was each person individually. It was up to each person individually to reject the love of power and embrace the power of love, for that is the way to peace. A peace that begins within us, and then from our own being radiates through all of our relationships. It was this same metanoia, this change of mind and heart, that would happen to Jesus. Traditionally, our doctrines and our dogmas have been created to worship and adore Jesus rather than to follow and imitate him. So when it comes to the Baptist, we have focused on the lines in the story that say, where John says, the one who is more powerful than I is coming after me, and I'm not worthy to stoop down and untie his sandals. And yet at the same time, in that same story, we have all but ignored the fact that Jesus came to John to learn and to be baptized. That John was his teacher and mentor. And yes, Jesus would end up living the power of love even more fully than John did, which is why it is Jesus' birth and Jesus' life and Jesus' death that we remember and honor rather than John's. But it means very little my friends, if we do not learn from both Jesus and John that our real work is to change our own minds and hearts towards the power of love and away from the love of power. To choose love over our need to control. To choose love over our desire to be more than another. To choose love over our personal and our collective fears. In these tumultuous and uncertain times in the church, I find myself as a spiritual leader identifying with John the Baptist, both to pay attention to the way of my own mind and heart, what course am I on, and also to the best of my ability to model and encourage metanoia in each of you. The Spirit of life, the Spirit of love, the Spirit we know as God is calling us into a new, old way of being. Away from right belief and religious certainty and into the deeper experience of the sacred presence in us and around us. Barbara Brown Taylor calls this the way of holy ignorance. It sounds counterintuitive, but she says it's a willingness to open to mystery, to open to wonder, and to live comfortably with uncertainty. She says, I have learned to prize holy ignorance more highly than religious certainty, and to seek companions who have arrived at the same place. We are a motley crew, distinguished not only by our inability to explain ourselves to those who are more certain of their beliefs than we are, but also, in many cases, by our distance from the centers of our faith communities. Like campers who have bonded over cook fires far from home, we remain grateful for the provisions that we have brought with us from those cupboards. But we also find them more delicious when we share them with others under the stars. There is no question for me that this describes my faith journey, past and present. All of religion, including Christianity, is at a turning point, a critical turning point, and it's mostly brought on by our own human evolution, particularly the evolution of our consciousness. It seems to me that we will either cling for dear life to traditionalism and die with it, or we will courageously step more fully into the mystery, into the wonder, even as John and Jesus did in their time. Richard Rohr says, what is happening to Christianity today is far bigger than any mere structural or organizational rearrangement. And I find that hilarious given what the United Church of Canada is up to right now, so focused on structural rearrangement. He says, it's more than that. It is an overwhelming change in Christian consciousness itself. It is a change of mind and heart that has been a long time in coming and now seems to be the new work of the Spirit. Only such a sea change of consciousness, drawing from the depths of the great ocean of love, will bear fruits that will last. How ironic, how truly ironic that the metanoia John called people to embrace, the same metanoia that Jesus lived and called people to embrace, is the metanoia that we are being called to embrace and live today. It is, I believe, the only way to peace. To begin with ourselves, to live more fully in the power of love. Yesterday was the second anniversary of my sister's death. And as I lit a candle in memory of her, I felt within me the deep peace that I long to see in the world. Though I continue to feel the immense grief of her loss and live the reality that she will not watch her grandson grow up, and that we no longer as family have her physical, joyful presence in our lives, still I know the deep ocean of love that is within me and in which I have my being. It is in that love that peace becomes. Poet Jean Mallet says it this way: "Alas, I've searched the world to find that peace begins within the mind. It doesn't start on other ground. Alone within will peace be found. No movement, plea, or gathered clan can force a peaceful state or plan. It is each single human who must make their dreams of peace come true. You may not find your neighbor kind, but do not try to change their mind. Some will not yield to good intention. Forgive these ones. Avoid dissension. Meditate your cares away. Embrace the Spirit. Learn to pray. Then you will know what peace is of. Defeat of fear, the reign of love." John the Baptist and Jimi Hendrix share a common understanding. John said, "People, listen, change your heart and mind." Jimi Hendrix said, "People, listen, when the power of love overcomes the love of power, the world will know peace." And I say, people, beautiful people, listen. In this Advent time, may the power of love change our hearts and minds, and may peace, true peace, deep peace become. Amen.